In the next section of Proverbs, chapter 6, we're looking at the ant. And I love the studies. You can go online. I'm not going to go through everything. Trust me, I will not be able to remember. Neither do I have listed in even bullet points the things that ants can do. But some of you all that are here, maybe you can interact with me and help me understand a little bit more and recall to memory some of the things that maybe you know about ants that are very interesting. But we're going to read this real quick, and then maybe some of you can comment about some of the things you know about ants, and I would be interested to learn with you. So it says in verse 6, "Go to the ant, thou sluggard." Now, a sluggard, what is a sluggard? Somebody who's slothful, somebody who's indolent. They don't take the time to do what they should. Consider her ways and be wise. Now, okay, an ant is wise. That's nice. Consider what she does because there's wisdom there. Well, I thought we got wisdom from Christ. Right, Christ created all things because he was given that power from the Father. So you can connect that as well. Anyways, verse 7. "Which, having no guide or overseer or ruler, the ant provides her meat in the summer, gathering her food in the harvest." Now, why would she gather her meat in the summer? Well, because winter's coming. And so when she gathers her meat in the summer, she's going to have a store in the summer, and she's going to gather her food in the harvest, so she has a store. And so it's providing food and also gathering. And that's the purpose of preparing for winter, right? And it's fascinating that she does that. "How long will you sleep, O sluggard? When wilt thou arise out of thy sleep? Yet a little sleep and a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to sleep. So shall thy poverty come upon thee as one that travelleth, and thy want as an armed man." So wait a minute. What does this mean? Poverty coming upon one that travels. Okay, so you're not working, you're traveling. And so you're not going to be storing up things in a location like an ant would because you're traveling. There's no place to store anything. So poverty is going to come upon you if you're traveling. And your want will be as an armed man. And I'd wrestled with this for a long time, but then I realized, wait a minute. If the man is armed, it's because he hasn't thrown his axe or his spear or his sword or whatever it is. He still has it. He's armed. And so if you're hunting, for example, and you have a spear, well, you're not going to be eating because you have the spear in your hand. That's what I think is probably what's meant here. If you're an armed man, it's because you haven't used the arrows or the spear or whatever it is that you might use to catch something. So I'm wondering, what do you all think about this story regarding the ants? Do you have any kind of hidden wisdom in your mind that you can gather from the ants? "These verses changed my life, and I've hated sleep because I've considered it a waste of time from there on out. I know I need it, but I just want to do stuff." You know, Brian, you and I are related because that is so similar to me. I would rather not sleep. Now, I do it because I do better with my mind if I sleep. So I try to get to sleep at 10, and I want to sleep as much as I can. I'm recently waking up after about 6 hours every night. But I think sleep should be given to somebody else. I just think it's not a good thing. Scott, good to see you. Ants are very persistent. That's right. And there's one thing we can learn from the devil, and that is persistence. And I think you've nailed it with the ants as well. So Vern, the cognitive activity of one watching a sitcom has been determined to be about 6%. So watching television is like slumbering. How many today waste untold hours of such productions? That's true. Absolutely. Anybody want to comment with their voice? I'd love to hear what you have to say about ants. Have you ever sat and watched them? Or perhaps you've seen some of those, like, what are they called? Moody Institute videos where it's talking about the ants, those old videos that are just amazing. Or perhaps you can go online and see something about ants. Have you learned anything from them? Go ahead, Selah.
I just read this said, unlike bees, ants don't replace their queen and will continue working until they all die of old age.
Really?
It kind of apply to me that I'm not replace my king, my God, my Savior, until I go old and die. Of course, he's alive. If I die, maybe wait for him in a grave, or if it's not, maybe see him in the glory.
Wow, I like that. That's really good. I didn't know that. That's something new to me. Ants will work together. Ants are very intelligent, and they will, if one, like it says here, carries between 10 to 50 times their own body weight. That's true. You can see one little tiny ant has this huge leaf above them, and they're carrying it at full speed. Well, there you can go and see on videos, there are ants that will, if one can't pull it, then one will grab onto the back of that ant and two will try to pull it. And that you can see lines of like 20 or 30, maybe more ants all working together to pull one thing. That's so fascinating to me. How much unity could we learn from the ants? How much could we understand from the ideas that they have of not only working together, but one more thing I've got to say, Vern, and then I want to hear from you. There is in the BBC videos, I don't remember which one, but it's talking about these ants in the jungles, and it might even be from jungles, I'm not sure. But these ants, they have one of the ants that will become sick with some kind of weird, fuzzy kind of mold type stuff. And what they do is once that ant becomes sick, they will take that ant. Some of them are kind of like warriors or servants. They'll take that ant and they'll move him as far as away from their colony as they can. And what that ant does is it climbs up as high as it can on top of a weed or some kind of grass stalk of some sort. It will die there from this this white kind of furry stuff that grows from them. And then as a result of dying, I think the dust from it, I don't remember the details, those spores of that will actually go around, and it's highly contagious, very deadly, and it will destroy the entire colony. So I'm like, how did they know that they've got to take that guy that's infected and move him away from the colony so that they save everybody else? It's like, how did they figure that out? I don't understand. But that's a really powerful illustration too about sin and how it can affect not only the one that's infected, but everybody around him too. So Vern, what were you going to say? And then I'll read some comments.
Well, you've just illustrated the one thing about ants that I find really peculiar, and it's fitting in the human life, and I think it's part of what the proverb is pointing at here. Not only are they diligent, but they're diligent individually for the whole. There's nobody telling them what to do. There's no, unlike the bees are much more so congruent in that way. They communicate to each other what's to come next or where this is, whereas the ants, they just get out there and do. And if helping another ant to do it is required, they do it. There's nobody saying, hey, Joe, you go over and help Bob kind of thing. And, I've seen this in human life on a construction project where you get half a dozen seasoned journeymen working together. Nobody takes control. Everybody just works together, and we watched it similarly. And there is, of course, some control behind it, but we watched something happen. It's happened quite a few times, but I watched it personally. The Jehovah's Witnesses have a building program whereby they gather in large numbers. Everybody's skilled in their trade, and they do a 24-hour church. Mm-hmm. And I was asked to be a supplier when I was with GP Corp for the painting products. And so I set up a time where I could come out there and see what they were doing. And it was mind-boggling. I drove by in the morning. The only thing there was the concrete pad on bare ground with the surfaces sticking out of it. And when I come by at 1 o'clock that afternoon, the bricks were up to shoulder level and people were lined up, and a brick was being passed to the next one, just like a water brigade. And they're being laid by master tradesmen around in a circle. I went by at 5 o'clock that night. The roof was on the building. And so I went by the next morning, which was Sunday morning, and they were lining up to hold their first service. It was fully landscaped, fully complete, and I was just awestruck. No and that way. Is the kind of diligence we see with the ants. But what's interesting with the ants, there is no chief ant telling them what to do like there was with the organizational structure. We had been told to have a courier deliver our product to their building at a very specific moment in the day. They knew exactly when they would need the paint, and they didn't want it in their way, but they also didn't want it lacking when they were ready for it. And this was the same with every trade supply. We were on a strict schedule, but I didn't think it was possible to do such a thing. But apparently they do this regularly. This is how they get their facilities up without great cost, because they're only buying material.
Wow, that's fascinating.
So ants do that without any apparent direction.
Yeah, that's incredible. So a queen ant, Lasius niger, Hymenoptera formicadia, I guess, has the longest record adult life of any insect, 28 and 3/4 years in capacity. That's amazing. Ants will walk up a tree to get a leaf and use that leaf as a boat to get across water. Yep. Intelligent little things. They also send scouts out to search so the whole colony is not at risk. That's true. Good point. Ants have 2 stomachs. One of their stomachs is for holding food for their own consumption, and the second one is to hold food to be shared with other ants. Ants are all about helping each other to thrive. That's fascinating. And so how many lessons could we learn? I mean, there's things here I didn't know. I didn't know about the 2 ants or the scout. I mean, I probably maybe have heard about that, but that's new to me. And then the water, using a leaf to go across water, that's great. And the years, I had no idea. So how fun. That's really exciting. And I want to be used as a tool in God's kingdom as diligently and as well as ants are used. And so may God continue to have mercy on me and use me according to his will.